Oh, we're way over here. We're going live and we're going. I'm live apparently. Hello, everybody who's watching out there in YouTube land. Hi, Joseph. Thanks for joining us. And yeah, I thought we'd pop back on tonight and have a bit of a natter about our Dune experience in the film, and hopefully that most of us have seen it at this point. Though if Brad's joining us in Australia, I think he might not have seen it yet. So just hoping really to get a bit more of your experience from watching Dune in cinema or at home, and put my wee review up tonight just to sort of get the ball rolling. I suppose I'm kind of one of the last people to do so. Howdy, Babs. Thanks for joining us. Have you? So let me know if you've seen the film. Have you seen it yet, Babs? Then. And hi, Joseph. Let us know if you've seen the film yet, folks. Because last time we chatted, basically, I just seen it in the cinema, and it was an appalling experience. And as we've said, it's much. We've had a much better experience watching this now, and I hope you can all hear me okay. Keep remembering to do these wee sound checks. So thank you very much for joining me as usual. And yeah, I'm going to try and do some wee science fiction thing every week. So Joseph saying he's seen it 3 times now. Same for myself, Joseph. I've once in the cinema and twice at home now. Babs, you still haven't seen it yet, Babs. But spoil away. No problem. Are you hoping to see it in the cinema, Babs? Is that it? Because you're in the States, so you should be able to watch it on HBO Max by now. But it's one of the things that we've been commenting about, Babs, is that there's been, just from looking at different people's experience of seeing it in the cinema and our own experience of seeing it in the cinema, that it's been a real mixed bag. Some people have had an absolutely fantastic, mind-blowing, sound was brilliant, vision, audio was brilliant, etc. And other people have had a really, really poor experience with the film in the cinema, and myself included. I thought I was going to get a bit of hate tonight, actually, for putting up my first little review was a 1 out of 10, based entirely on what we saw on the screen. And I just hope people wouldn't get too miffed with me. I know the second review follows on, but I thought it was really important to give a kind of honest, a bit of honest insight into the experience. And that I've never seen an IMAX film, by the way. I'm sure a lot of you actually have seen films in IMAX, but I haven't. I've yet to experience that. So for me, I thought it was very, very concerning to see how that film transferred onto my local cinema screen. Babs is saying you're supposed to go to the cinema tomorrow. Got to do son's next day off. Not worried either way. Well, I hope you catch it in the cinema. I hope you get a good viewing, Babs. That's kind of all I'm saying. I hope choose your movie house wisely. It might be a good thing, I suppose. I went to see it the first day of release on the first screen, but it might be good to maybe check in with some people, Babs, to see which cinemas are good and which cinemas are not. There's David Segovia saying hello, Doc. Hello, David. Thanks for joining us. Just thought we'd pop on and have a wee bit of a chat tonight about what we think of the film now that we've had a proper chance to see it. And I think a lot of people have actually seen it at this point, unless, as I was saying, unless they were like Brad out in Australia. And I don't think anything's changed too much there. Let's have a wee look. Joseph saying the theatre experience at IMAX was awful. Too loud, bad seats, crowded into the T of the seating arrangement, or you had to crane your neck. Excuse me. My throat's nearly better, actually. That's interesting, Joseph, because most of the comments have been about IMAX have been pretty positive. There's a couple of comments that I've read from people that their position in the theater seemed to change their experience. That if they were central in the theater with IMAX, that it wasn't too bad. But a number of the comments that I've read seems to be people out in the wings or the sides are not experiencing the film well. And if it's not that the picture's bad in IMAX, but apparently the sound is too much. I went to see I was at the London premiere of Star Trek Generations a long time ago, and I think it was in Leicester Square, and there was new sound in the cinema at the time, and it was very full on. It was quite impressive, but compared to this, I really think it was just I think it's got to be some sort of technological, I don't know, cross-platform fault, if you see what I mean. Something about it didn't seem to transfer well to normal cinema. Um, but there you go. So if anybody blasting sound, I think I said in my review I thought it was rather bombastic. Um, but from our point of view, it was covering up dialogue as well. I think we had such a hard time hearing the film and actually seeing parts of it. As I said, that's the reason why I gave the film 1 out of 10. To be honest with you, whenever we walked out of Dune and walked out of the cinema having seen Dune, we hadn't seen the film at all. And that again, I give it a 7 out of 10. I think the film's pretty good. I think it has its plenty of flaws, and I really do think something should be done in terms of adjusting the levels of sound. And I know that's funny coming from me as someone who's had a bit of an issue with loud music in the past before. But it does seem to detract a bit from the experience. Joseph says, I do want to talk about the things I loved about it when possible. Well, as do I, Joseph. That's what we're. Please, everybody, fire away. Let us know what you loved about the film, what you didn't like about the film, or if you have any issues concerning the film or the book. I know I have my own opinions, but it's always great to sort of banter this stuff out and have a chat. And I think the opinion of the film is quite positive. I think there's a few people who are quite upset with it actually, but I think that was inevitable, I suppose. David says, here in Latin America are a few countries with that IMAX stuff. However, I'm glad to see it in the cinema without that technology. I liked it 4 out of 5. Of course, are some incongruences with the book. Yeah, so there's not that much IMAX where you're at, David. It's the same here. It's not that we couldn't have made an effort to go see the film in IMAX if there was one around, but I don't. I think the nearest IMAX to us would be across the sea in Scotland. um, and with COVID making a travel a bit awkward. But yeah, I'm thinking it's turned up in my local cinema, David. Excuse me. And I originally had to travel a fair bit. Well, we travelled up to Belfast. It wasn't that epic, but it has turned up in the local cinema, and there's comfy seats, etc. There. So I might consider having another rewatch in the cinema. But again, it won't be IMAX. But it is a pity because it did look like a film I would have really enjoyed on the big screen. And I like certain films that look really impressive on the big screen. There are some films that you want to see. You wish they'd be almost, I don't know, annually re-released on the cinema. Things like 2001 and I don't know, but I would put the original Blade Runner. I think would be something I've never seen on the big screen. But yeah, and so you're pretty happy with it, David. I think as I said, there's bound to be stuff that's different from the book. There's no way that you could adapt David Lynch's Dune totally. Sorry, David Lynch's Dune. Listen to me, Frank Herbert's Dune totally to the big screen. I think there's just too much in it. It's too. I think it could have worked very well on television, to be honest, and maybe ultimately the Dune franchise will head there. Joseph says the Gon Jabbar scene was incredible, and how Chalamet played the entire scene with mostly just his face. Yeah, I thought he was very good. The one thing I didn't like about that scene, Joseph, was where it seemed that he'd been, just yanked across the room and was standing there. You know what I mean? It was that come here and he's there, and it seemed almost like one of those old kind of horror comedy cliches. But yeah, the voice was done quite an interesting way, much more forceful, I thought. And yes, well, what you're saying, Joseph, is the way he had to play it, because we kind of lost that. Paul running through the litany against fear, and we kind of had that transferred on to Jessica. But yeah, I think he was very good in it. And I think Charlotte Rampling was a bit too frosty. I think I've used that word, frosty, as a character, and I actually thought that the way Sian Phillips played the Reverend Mother in the David Lynch film was a bit better. I thought that there is something a bit maternal in her ultimate response to Paul, sympathetic, I think, and she didn't come across that way. The voice. Did you watch the Denny interview on Vanity Fair? No, I haven't. There's a is that the there's a I've read a whole bunch of them. I haven't seen that one at all. No, I've just had a look at the Los Angeles Times. Caron, who pops on here, sends me a lot of articles because I don't really peruse Hollywood news media. To be honest with you, it's not something that interests me too much. I used to like film magazines and stuff in my youth, but it's a very sort of funny place these days. But no, so I must have. But I am trying to catch up on a lot of these interviews and really to get some sort of some perspective into Danny's thinking, basically, in how they've had a look at the film and the story. Because I'm very curious at the minute about the ecology theme and what I'd like to hear Denis talk about that. Actually, I'm imagining it's hopefully going to come in the second film. Alma Light of Solar says we have to mention the Sardaukar chant, though. Yeah, and as that's I thought the Sardaukar were quite interesting. We didn't see too much of them. And is that the little Sardaukar chant? Is that the little boom, the little chant at the beginning? You mean, Alma? I'm not too sure, but was it dream? What was it says again? Dreams are from the deep or something like that. I'm not sure if that's what you mean. Dreams. I don't know. No, I'm not finding it there. I'm not going to go have a nosy there, but maybe if that's what you're referring to, Alma. I thought that yeah, there's a bit of a Sardaukar language there, wasn't there, as well? I thought the Sardaukar looked quite good. Oh goodness! Sorry about that, folks. That's my dog has just sent a computer flying. Right, I'm probably noodles. She sent a laptop flying. Apologies, that hit a guitar. Right, there we go. Sorry about that, folks. My Jack Russell had burrowed under the bed. She's there and launched an old laptop flying that I've been trying to fix, actually. Sorry, that was a bit noisy. Apologies. Let me just catch up, folks. But dude, the Sardaukar were awesome, says Joseph. And yes, that's Sardaukar. Yes, we're all liking the Sardaukar. The interview with Vanity Fair, says Joseph, really helps us understand Denny's choices on the use of voice. I wonder if you could expand that for us a wee bit, Joseph. There's Keith Cobb saying, greetings. Hi, Keith. How you doing? Thanks for joining us. If you've got any opinions or thoughts on Denis Villeneuve's Dune, fire away. Let's hear them. Hello, Holly. I have another dog. This is the doghouse, by the way. Off you go, big love. Behave yourself. Go on. Go on. Let me see. Not remember the blood ritual of the Sardaukar in the book, but have a deep impact on the audience. Yeah, I'd seen some shots of that, David, where I think that the bodies were actually all naked, and then they've digitally put in some loincloths or something over them. Yeah, it's a little bit grotesque and visual, kind of almost Giger-esque, I think. Yeah, I thought it was interesting. It's the ritual and the mystique of the Sardaukar. The blood ritual, Alma says, with man with the voice modulator. The blood ritual, yes, that's. Oh, sorry, I thought you were talking about the little bit at the start of the film that is meant to. I think did somebody say it was in the Sardaukar language? That might be complete nonsense, Alma. I do apologize. Yeah, the whole thing with the Sardaukar, I thought it was very impressive. And we got a little bit of a glimpse of Salusa Secundus as well. Joseph Smith says, at first I hated that Denis spent time altering and showcasing the Sardaukar, but after reviewing it, I think it fits more with how he sees the world of Dune. I know if I was making Dune, I would spend time on Guinas just because I could. That's the Sword Masters, isn't it? Chair dog revolt. Well, the Sardaukar part of Frank's message is a particular message on the military, war and the mystique of the army, etc. Um, which is I suppose tied to some other aspects of character. I was thinking actually about the Baron, but yeah, chair dog revolt. That wasn't. I think was it. We're told it's not a chair dog now. Apparently, the thing that again in the cinema, I just sort of caught it out of the corner of my eye and went, "What's that?" And I think somebody pointed out it's is it described as a human spider proxy or something like that in the credits. So I think as much as we thought it maybe it would have been something like a chair dog, I think it's something else, and probably as somebody said, hinting towards this Hyaxu, who we should not see very much of in Dune at all. Alma says the Sardaukar have an interesting language, rough and brutal, yet the meanings of what they say come off as sort of like poetry. Well, they're obviously influenced by the Mongolians and Alatic peoples. It's an interesting point. Yeah, I thought their language was guttural. Um, I must have a wee bit of a listen to it. I tend to I have a very big interest in language, Alma. Um, of course, the Sardaukar are meant to be the riffraff of the galaxy. Really, it's meant to be that the mystery of who they are and where do they recruit from is one of those interesting things. One of the mysteries that we actually find out in Dune. Actually, Keith says I actually haven't seen it yet. Oh, Keith, having trouble finding a babysitter for my 3-year-old. Wife wants to take her with us, but I think it's a bit much for her first movie. I think the noise would be a bit harsh for a 3-year-old. I think depends on where you're at, Keith. I suppose maybe the home viewing might be better. Um, hmm. But as you can tell, Keith, we've been having a chat. I think it seems most people's experiences of the film's pretty positive, and I'm really pleased about that because. But we've got a fair amount of people who are saying it's not been that good, and it's really down to individual cinemas by the sounds of it, And I said that's why I thought it was really important not to judge the film based on my first viewing, but I thought it was quite important to include it, that it was part of. And it seems that a lot of people are having a bit of, put it this way, Keith, choose your cinema well. And I think go for a good IMAX. I think is if you're going to go see it in the cinema, choose your cinema well. Maybe get a bit of ask around, check people who've actually seen it. But for anybody from my point of view, I'll not mention it again, but locally people will know what cinema I went to see it in, and I would advise not to go to it. If you want to see Dune, it's not that it's a bad cinema; it just does not work on that screen or the sound. Joseph says Danny explains that he wanted the use of voice to be from the target's perspective. So when it hits the target, they sort of narc out and wake up realizing that they're acting without volition. So the creature with the arms, I don't know what that is, but creepy. Yeah, it's some sort of pet, isn't it? I think somebody had suggested that it was what's left of somebody had suggested it's what's left of Yui's wife. Channel Mao says, dropping in to say how, but then probably leaving. I'm seeing it tomorrow on IMAX. Thank you very much, Channel Mao. I hope you have a good experience. Let us know, actually. As I said, most of the IMAX comments seem pretty positive, though there's a few of them that haven't been too good. And I'd say that some of the cinema experiences haven't been too good, but plenty of them seem to be fine, I think. It's, yeah. It's a visual masterpiece, says Randomity. Hey, Randomity. It's a visual masterpiece, yet much of its time is spent in exposition for non-Dune fans. That's interesting, Randomity. I've been thinking about the exposition, and I think where it comes, it's in some places it's too subtle. And for example, the whole reading of the scroll, almost all of the first 15 minutes of the film could have been used better. We get very little sense of the politics of the universe, or really just of the power structure. I think, and I thought there was very little sense of how important melange is and how important water is. Visually, for us in the cinema, it was appalling. It was just a lot of smudge. Whenever we watched it on the small screen, it was much clearer. It was much better, and I would agree with you. It's visually beautiful in places, a really beautiful film in places, and utterly gutted that our cinema experience was so crap. Um, mm. And there's even I think I'd say Dune's going to be exposition heavy anyway. I think people have been praising it randomly for the lack of exposition, whereas I think it could have done with a wee bit more in key places. Alma Light of Solar says maybe the Great Convention didn't go far enough. After all, that spider thing is crawling around. Well, as long as what if it doesn't have a mind? Alma is an interesting point. John Mal says, "Fingers crossed. I hope you get a good. I hope you get a good viewing, Channel Mal. It seems to be if you get a good viewing, you're going to absolutely love it. I think that's it. As long as you're getting the right experience on the screen, that you're seeing it properly and you're hearing it properly, then there's what's to hate. You know what I mean? I think you'll just love it. So fingers crossed for you, Channel Mal. I hope you get a good showing." Joseph Smith says, "I love the Thopters. I think they're great too, Joseph. But I still I don't know what you guys think, but I don't think they're ornithopters. Um, hmm, they seem to they remind me, saying that the way they fly is pretty interesting, but they seem to remind me more on like dragonflies. I think Hmm, but they are, yeah, they're a big talking point. Everybody seems to like them. Keith says, if I can't stand up on a normal cinema screen, it doesn't bode well for the movie as a whole. Avatar was so if it can't so if I can't stand up excuse me, Keith, I misread that. If it can't stand up on a normal cinema screen, it doesn't bode well for the movie as a whole. Avatar was well regarded and made all the money, but no one talks about it now. No one quotes Avatar. Whereas flawed as 1984 Dune was, the spice must flow. 1984 Dune is a very flawed film, and it's a very enjoyable film. I still think I think I would talk about that. I have to say that I still like the David Lynch's version a bit better, but it's because I enjoy it. But it's more fun, and really that's what I mean. It is a more fun film. It's got much more of a sense of the grotesque and the the well, hey, the little it is a bit bonkers in some ways, and it is highly enjoyable for that reason. And there's no perfection, I think, in the world, really. It's you can't think of something that's going to be perfect, or every everything has its flaw. And it's to be honest with you, sometimes it's the flaws that make something a masterpiece. You know, um, if you can't fault something, you're not going to talk about it much, are you? But yes, I agree, Keith. I was actually thinking that if we consider cinema, and we hear, Denis Villeneuve talking about that Dune is going to be a love letter to the cinema, and I think I said that it seemed more like a love letter to IMAX rather than to cinema. And at the minute, I see them as two different things now. But I'd also argue that all directors' films ultimately end up on the TV, and that on the small screen, and that they should have some kind of mindfulness, I suppose, that ultimately that sooner or later we're going to view the thing there. You know. But let's see. Let's just catch up with your. But yeah, some interesting points, folks. Keep firing away with any comments or what you thought of the film or any of the particular actors, anything at all. I'm absolutely fascinated to find out what you thought about it. You've heard some. I again, giving a critique of something is one thing. To chat about it and sort of off the record, if you like, and tell it. I loved the film. I really enjoyed it. And there's it's a film that I'm going to be watching again and again to look at carefully and pick apart, because there's so much that's nice about it. There's so much that's good about it. It's got its flaws, and as I said, my big concern about the movie is the ecological message. That's really it. I think. Regardless, it's always going to be a mixed bag of what you keep and what you don't, because it's a movie. So I mean, I like all the versions of Dune. To be honest with you, there's none of them that I dislike. Let me catch up a wee bit, folks. But yeah, let us know what you think, and I'll read away at the comments. Alma says, I never got the exposition. It's very subtle. Not even a mention of the jihad or the mentats. Absolutely, Alma. I thought little bits. It was the film book that Paul reads. You can hear it I was actually looking for a credit in the film to see who's reading the book, but I couldn't see one. Um, so yeah, yeah, the whole kind of jihad thing, I think, is one of those terms that's caused a bit of controversy. I don't know why. It's the Butlerian jihad. It's the jihad. This is the language of Dune, and I think a large number of there's some elements that have been watered down heavily from Dune, and I would argue that a lot of the Islamic influences are gone. I don't see them too much. And it's important to remember that there Dune is almost an eclectic universe in terms of how it's mishmashed all these different religions and so on. But in particular, I thought, yeah, it's interesting because we get people talking about crusade and jihad, and the words are two completely different words, and they mean two completely different things. But yes, I agree. The exposition is subtle, and if you're not a Dune fan, you're maybe not going to notice it too much. It's kind of a wee bit in the background. Yet the whole thing with the guild turning up and the reading of the scroll is meant to identify the power politics, what's going on, the relationship of the melange to the economy of the universe, the different part, and it's done visually. And I was pointed out. I think it was to Caron before earlier that I thought it was a bit daft, and then he pointed out Caron pointed out it was a bit Daft Punk. And I was actually just wondering for a brief minute, was that Daft Punk getting off the ship? Apparently not, but it was a nice thought. But yes, very little of that. I think where we could have had exposition, and even if we're missing all the historical documents of Ireland, we're missing the internal monologues. It's not that you would have to use all of it, but a little bit here and there can be useful. And I think Dune's got one of a very, very strong beginning as a novel. I don't think it needs to be retweaked or reworked. I think its beginning is a great beginning. Not even a mention of the jihad. Yes, we were talking about. There's, it's. I think it's Hollywood politics to a degree. The Mentats, we get a quick roll of some eyes, and the Mentats are highly underused. I think Alma. I thought very little of Piter and Thufir, and I thought both actors were doing pretty well, but they had so little to work with, and I thought we didn't get to see hardly any of those two characters' character. And especially is it Brad Dourif doing the oh in the a lot of actors get about the same amount of time in the David Lynch film, but what they do with the parts, I think, is a lot more interesting. It really brings the minor characters to life. And of course, Alma Paul's a Mentat, which is a big part of his character. My understanding is that Denis Villeneuve is, I think, in one of those interviews recently, probably the one I was reading for the LA Times, has addressed this, and apparently he's going to run with the Mentat thing a lot more in part two. David says, yeah, that creature with arms is bizarre. It seems to me that is a Tleilaxu creation. Yeah, it has that. So it's interesting that it responds to the Reverend Mother's voice. But yeah, so I wonder I'm sure we'll get a little bit of inside information on that at some point, David. But it'll be interesting to find out what it actually is. But the human spider proxy, is that, I think, is what it says in the. Is it some famous contortionist or something? Or somebody I think is playing. It's actually a person, I believe. But yeah, interesting little. Wonder what that's all about. Let's see. Let's just catch up with your comments, folks. This is good fun. I'm glad that a lot of us have seen it, and it's. And for those who are about to see it, I hope you do have a genuinely good experience with it. I have to say the funniest part I have to say the funniest part that me and my friends laughed at was when they said "holy war" instead of jihad. I don't. Do you know what? I just couldn't. I was just I just couldn't laugh at anything on the screen. I was trying to. I suppose me and the wife were kind of joking about it. It was just how bad we couldn't see anything. It was such a. I'm not joking. Our experience was appalling. Much better on the small screen. I really enjoyed the film. I've kept to stop saying that it was appalling because I've now seen it since a different way. Um, but yeah, there's details. I thought the sandwalk was a bit funny. And although it's mentioned in the book, I was really hoping for a bit of walking without rhythm there, you know. Miles Teg 87 says, "Hi Doc, I'm here late. Is the movie worth it?" Depends on how much money they spent on it, Miles. But as a person, I've often found that spending obscene amount of money on movies isn't worth it. But yes, it is. I think it is. Um, I think there's real effort and love in it. I think, and it has its flaws. Um, but yeah, it's definitely worth it. But the thing I'm going to say, Miles, is if you haven't seen it yet, is check it. Make sure you see it on a good screen. And we have enough people talking about bad experiences both in IMAX and cinema. So if you haven't seen it yet, Miles, have a chat with your friends who have and figure out where's a good screen. You know, get a bit of inside information. I think. But do if I think there's a few people kind of upset, you know, that oh no, we're naysaying the film. It's not that at all. It's not the film that's been the problem. It's been actually being able to see it and watch it. And I think so. It's been, you know, the medium that we're trying to view the thing in that's been really harmful. I think to the movie. Um, but yeah, it's definitely worth it. Definitely worth it. And one, as I said, now as I couldn't see, we could see very little and hear very little when we went to see it. But once we could watch it properly, I was much more impressed, and I was like, oh, thank goodness for that. Thank goodness, you know, it's and I do have issues with it, and I'm very worried about the ecological side of it. But and I'm when I say worried, you know, people ask me, "Oh, you worried about will June Part Two get made?" And I was telling them no, not worried at all because I'm not bothered about such things in terms of money and all this. But I think Herbert's message about ecology is really timely and important, and I am concerned a wee bit about it. But that's my major problem with the film, and that's it. Mm. I suppose that the music could be integrated into the film better. That's my other major criticism. Keith said, "Don't get me wrong. I love Lynch's Dune. I'm saying it's generally maligned. It's still quotable. Well, that's particularly what I love about it, Keith. Is its sense of operatic over the topness, and it is incredibly quotable. I think every actor in that film's got a good quote, and I've that's something I was found a wee bit missing. I think it's iconic, Keith. I think that's as much as we agree. I mean, it's an incredibly condensed version of June with major events being dealt with. Paul did this and you know, a bit of guitar, but you know, a lot of montages and stuff. But I think it's a wonderful experience. It's a good it's a good way to condense June. I think. Um, Alma says the Ornies were amazing. The visual style of the buildings and ships fit perfectly to the world, brutal and pyramidal. Um, there's a constant feeling you're but a small man amongst the giant universe. Yeah, um, I think the ornithopters were great, and the scale of them going across the desert. I wasn't too keen on the city of Arakeen. Um, it looked like the same type of model that was used to build the original Death Star. If you see, what I mean, just like a generic city landscape. I didn't really get a sense of it being a city, if you know what I mean. And Randomly says no navigators. And I, I don't know at the beginning, but I wasn't quite too sure who had turned up there. We go, that's a Bene Gesserit. Is that a guild navigator? Or are they stairs? What? Who are these guys? Or this is meant to be the Landsrat. Is this houses of the Landsrat? You know, and I do think the big spaceship that landed that the guild or the Emperor's representative got off looked very much like it should have been in the recent Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy film. It reminded me a bit of the Heart of Gold, I think. Joseph Smith says, I like the costumes. I rewatched the 84 just yesterday. Yeah, I've actually been watching the 84 with my wife because she wants to know what happened. And she finds it a bit easier to follow, I suppose. But it's probably because of all of the exposition. Sootpot says, regards the ecological, perhaps it's a gateway to the book and then the greater messages. Well, that's a really good point, Sootpot. Excuse me. I mean, ultimately, if it does lead people to the books, um, it will, yeah, I suppose most of the ecological messages in the first book, it depends on where you stop reading as well. Um, But I think it is leading an entire new generation to the books, hopefully. But the ecological message is a wee bit tricky in the book sometimes, you know. Uh, Gateway to the book. Yeah, I think the ecological message. Support my point is it's really timely. I think it's now or never really. I think if June ever had its moment in the sun, it's now. Um, Juice was saying the still tent was awesome. Yeah, I thought that was pretty good actually. Uh, and I thought the way Timothy Chalamet acted inside it, you know, not having that much space, that kind of thing. I thought that was quite good. David Segovia says, "Yeah, the guild navigator that appears in the first scene looks most like a human, with no deformation at all due to the spice. I would love to see something more closer to Edric." Yeah, I quite like the. Um, I've actually liked the. Do you mean Edric as in how he was shown in the TV series, David? I thought he was quite interesting. Yeah, he looked a bit more human than the David Lynch. Hmm. The beginning is a delicious time for making sure that the cinema screen is in focus and your sound's not blasting. Oh dear, it is indeed. Alan says the actors were great, but there was not enough time for the movie. I think I made a wee comment. I thought all the actors were pretty good, but I thought there wasn't time. I think particularly on screen for Jessica and Leto, I didn't think their chemistry was great. But I thought, if you see what I mean, but I thought both actors were very very good in the role. But I wasn't too sure about what they. I'm not too sure what you guys think about the way Jessica's played. I've heard Denis talk about that he wanted to sort of bring more femininity and to bring those female roles to the fore. But I thought what he did was apply a level of vulnerability to, and I don't know if that's whether a combination of Denny and the actress's choice, but there's a level of vulnerability and uncertainty to the character of Jessica, which I thought was a bit out of character. I think she's much, much stronger and more sure of herself and more controlled, definitely, in the book, you know. And so I actually said I thought both Paul and Jessica were a little bit watered down because of it. But yeah, a lot of the actors are very, very good. I liked Thufir, says Joseph. I thought it was really good. Mostly the parasol juxtaposed to the Master of Assassins. There's a bit of a story about that, isn't it? That was a kind of real world consideration that ended up in the film, I believe, Joseph. Yeah, I thought the actor was very good. And I totally wasted, as far as I'm concerned. Thiffer's a pretty important character. And I really wanted to see a lot. I'm not sure of the. I must hang on. Bring up. Tell you what I'll do, folks. I'm going to bring up a Wikipedia thingy of it because I'm not 100% sure on a lot of the Dune actors' names. Let me see. Which is appalling of me. Of course, is it Stephen McKinley? I believe Stephen McKinley Henderson. There we go. I'm going to keep that handy there in case I need to look up any. I'm really bad with actors' names these days. It's no disrespect to the actors. I thought he was excellent, and I thought he was cast really well. It was kind of how I'd imagined Thufir to look. Just didn't see enough of him. I thought, and there's some major plots there with Thufir. And if they're going to carry on into the next book, we don't really see what happened to him. Randomly says Chandaya was throwing some major shade towards Paul prior to the Amtal duel. That's the opposite of what happened in the book. Yeah, she points out how he fights, doesn't she? She gives him a bit of assistance. But also, Jessica manages to use one of those control words on Jamis before Paul can stop her in the book. So Jamis is afraid because of that, I think. So it's not a fair fight. Interestingly enough, I only just finished the book again, guys, as I was telling you. So it's one of those things that I noticed just after reading it again. I'm trying to decide whether to read Dune Messiah at the minute or not, or pile into something else. But I'm highly thinking on a reread of Tiger. Shanda was let's see. Michisi says, in a lot of ways, I love the music. It was mysterious. It was a mysterious, beautiful, dangerous soundscape rather than a soundtrack. But yes, it overwhelmed the story and dialogue often. Hmm. Joseph said did not care for Arakin much either, too bland. Yeah, but GC, if I've said your name right, I hope. I agree. That's a good way of putting it. Thank you for that. A soundscape, but as you said, overwhelmed the story and dialogue often. I mean, I actually thought that the music around the Baron, those go, that those sort of horns, if that's what it was. I haven't really had a chance to look at the music that much. I'm a musician myself, so I really like to separate the soundtrack out and have a listen to it without the film. Um, but yeah, it's the I think it simply could have been put into the film better. Certainly, some of the sounds pretty interesting. Some of the tunes sound interesting, but it was for us it was an oral assault. And as I said, I've listened to some of it again, kind of having a. I suppose the second time I'm watching it, I've been paying quite a lot of attention to the film, the dialogue, and everything that we didn't see and hear the first time. But I did pick up on a few wee things, and I thought it was quite interesting the sort of Irish Scottish pipes, piping out the Atreides, who are meant to be descended from Greeks. So I was going, what's the pipes doing here? Oh no, they've got a bagpiper, and I was wondering, does that seem like a nod to the Longest Day or something? But God's sake, if you've lived with the pipes, it's not not the best if you hear them every day. Put it that way. Um, it says it shows the need for sacrifice. Excuse me, my nose actually it does. Just in terms of, I'm assuming that that's what you mean, Sootpot. Just in terms of what we have to throw out from the film, from the book, for to make it into the film. Excuse me. Alma says, reckon space is like having an intergalactic gargle blaster. Pangalactic gargle blaster. Ah, I'm reckoning space feels like having your brain smashed with a gold brick before a fresh wedge of lime squeezed onto the mess after. Yeah, I don't know. I was thinking about that the other day, actually. I'll tell you why, Alma. I was considering recording. I'm thinking about making an hour-long episode for the science fiction station, just all on science fiction in general. And I was going to create a set of adverts, little blipverts to put in. And I was just thinking about what we were talking about: spice, coffee, Milan's, and then of course the Pangalactic Gargle Blaster, as I know it, Alma. And I was actually I'd found an advert for Ubik coffee. And I was thinking on doing some things like that. It's interesting that you say that. Yeah. Spice is a different drug to different people for different reasons, isn't it? Hmm. I don't know. I think you'd have to be, if you understand the consequences of spice, I think you'd have to be quite daft to take it. Hmm. But yeah, we don't really get too much on the spice at all, I think, in the film. And you kind of see it in we get the mining. Don't really get its kind of impact on the universe. MD Cheesy says, I'm wondering if in part two, Paul's introduction to Fremen culture will show how Liet and Liet's father manipulated them into their devotion to changing Arrakis or not. Well, we've lost a lot of the with Pardo Kynes and Liet Kynes. I suppose the Pardo Kynes, where we get a lot of that information, is in Liet's hallucination at the point where Liet dies. That's all gone. Um, uh, so, and as much as we have the mini adventure of Pardo Kynes at the end of the book, you could tell that in flashback. You see, it's I was saying, so it's almost like a little bit of a, the beginning of a James Bond film starts with the kind of the previous mission. If you see what I mean, it could have been done as a prologue actually, but well, the problem, I suppose. Uh, Liet and Liet's father. So, well, the person that's going to be Liet's father, I think, is maybe going to be Liet's mother. It's the whole gender swapping of Liet Kynes is a real hodgepodge, to be honest with you. As I've always sort of said, it doesn't matter if you're going to not worry about the ecological message. So maybe it doesn't matter at all. But I'm hoping that something of that's going to be salvaged from the film. And I think some of the Pardo hallucination is now represented by, it's a hallucination of Janus delivering some of the ecological message. I was able to figure that out on my second viewing. Let's see. But yeah, well, you can. I think that Alma, by the way, is a very few people can drink more than one Pan-Galactic Gargle Blaster. Is not the point. Jessica has a moment in the still suit IIRC. I don't know what that acronym means. Hang on, I'm going to look it up. Ping. If I remember correctly, goodness, my acronyms have gotten very poorly. Got very poor. Apologies for that. I'll have to start remembering a lot of these. So, but Jessica has a moment in the still suit, if I can remember correctly. Oh, you'll have to remind me a wee bit about that suit pot, if you don't mind. I'm catching up a wee bit here. 22:30. Oh, I'm a good few minutes behind, folks. So I'm just going to catch up with some of your comments and head on down a bit. Random, it says, don't take this the wrong way, but the portrayal of Leah Kynes was very weak and attempted to make a misguided attempt at female empowerment. Max von Sydow, how we miss you. I don't take it the wrong way at all, Randomity. I think it's been done for quite stupid reasons. I don't think they've, based on reading Denis Villeneuve's response in the LA Times, I think it shows that they don't understand the character. It shows that the scriptwriters do not understand the character. And if Danny feels that this, he could have done it to any character. But if that's the case, then it really does suggest that to me. And it's probably one of the most important characters in the book. But you could have gender swapped anybody and not caused all this mess. Stilgar would have been fine, a more prominent character. But as I said, I think it's an own goal for feminism that ends up with a male character being turned into a female character that will then ultimately be blamed for everything. And then why not? Let's not give her one, but two phallic deaths. I think a few of you have heard my comments about this, but it's all to do with what Kynes represents. So in one sense, if you want to say it's a equality to blame women for men's problems, then that is equality. Yeah, but I don't think it's the way that they wanted to go about it. I think it's an own goal, and I think it is kind of stupid. Right, Jessica has her moments. I think she was portrayed not necessarily more vulnerable, but to be relatable, and show how she's always quelling those emotions. I would agree in that sense, but you see, it's it came across that way to me, but it's. And as much as these things are that bit where she's walking along, I think they're sort of out of sight of other characters. They're meant to be private. I agree it's to make her more relatable, but otherwise, but I think the whole point is that she's borderline superhuman herself. And I just think of her as a lot tougher from the books. That's really. Yeah, good to see that. I think that she's a lot tougher in the books. Sorry, Randomly, but Randomly saying there, good to see that bagpipes persist 10,000 years from now. Yes, indeed. Nothing like the pipes to scare the bejesus out of people. Burton Sasha says, I think we didn't see the city of Arrakeen, but only the shield wall, some kind of bunker system. World War One style. Well, that was a criticism, isn't it? But, because we did see a shield wall, didn't we, folks? But it is a wall. And the shield wall in Dune is a natural mountain ridge. It's a natural defense. Didn't the Greeks have pipes? They did, I believe, but I don't think they had those kind of pipes. Keith says, random, it's 10,000 years after the Guild, which is 20,000 years from now. So yeah, bagpipes survived 30,000 years, indeed. And if you ever do check the narrative, by the way, the Butlerian Jihad, Samuel Butler gives you that timeline, and you can put it all together. It's interesting. The Butlerian Jihad is as Samuel Butler predicted, and Dune is kind. So the two books are fundamentally linked. The pumpkin spice must flow for Halloween. Yes, indeed. Soup pots, not the same type of pipes as the Scots. Yeah, no, that's. I didn't think there were. There's Irish. There's a range of Irish pipes, and there's a whole range of Celtic pipes. I'd imagine. There's probably Breton ones, and but But yeah, there's definitely an Irish set of bagpipes. There's Scottish ones. There's a range of different ones. Um, they're not there. You can get a bit of. I think they're not being played too much with COVID. Thoughts on Shai Halud? Hmm. Shai Halud and not Shaitan, I suppose. Yeah, didn't see the worms too much. And I think that's good. I think we've got a wee bit of the sand rider, the worm rider at the end. Um, so far from what I've seen, I thought the worms were pretty good. I thought how they travel is very good. Um, but I'd like to see them up a bit more up closer. Alma, I suppose I'm going to have a good wee nosy at them. But we don't see too much of them. What we do see is only really the kind of the mouth emerging. Oh, there we go. Ryan the Scar. Hi, Ryan. Hey, folks, says Ryan. Thanks for joining us, Ryan. If you were just chatting about the film, anybody's got any comments or questions, let us know what you thought. Do. Keith says, I doubt the ecological message is going to be featured. There's too much other stuff to focus on. And it looks like Denny is leaning hard into the don't trust charismatic leader angle. Yeah. I don't know. I've done the work on it. I'd say evolution is the biggest theme in Dune, the whole series. But the catastrophic messianic hero, huge. But it's the platform that he uses to come to power, which is that of ecology, to a degree. There's all sorts of things, but I think it's the thing that Dune is arguably most famous for. Is ecology. It's dedicated to dry land ecologists everywhere. This effort at prediction. Um, And if the thing, Keith, if what you're saying is true, and I think I said this, that this should be the film that's the poster child for the Greta Thunberg generation. This should be their big ecological film that shows really that actually backs up a lot of the points that they've already figured out. You know, and it could be the ecological message could be very easily reinterpreted to an economic one. Um, There's too much stuff to focus on, says Keith, and it looks like he's leaning hard into the don't trust charismatic leaders angle. Yeah, and I think in light of what we've seen in the last few years, that's possible. This is quite an old book. I don't know. I've been living in Northern Ireland. We haven't trusted our political leaders for ever. Um, there's no reason to trust them. Ladies behave. There's no reason to trust them, and they keep demonstrating the same thing over and over again. Much of I think the lessons in June about leadership, political leadership, military leadership, religious leadership, the use of religion as a control system, as a tool, deceit as a tool of statecraft. All of those lessons are pretty old at this point to me. The ecological message is the one that's most timely, I think, and there's a whole generation of young people that I think one of the things we've talked about is that a lot of the science fiction of the era of the times over the last 50 years, last 60, even 60, 70 years, a lot of it's environmental disaster novels, leading on from those kind of Thames Valley disaster novels. And we seldom ever get, here's doomed nature. We get plenty of that in J.G. Ballard, for example. But we never get a solution or here's something you could do, here's something worth thinking about. And that's what makes Dune a bit different. Is an ecological book. It's trying to educate you in a very subtle way without being preachy. But the other thing it really is, if you read Dune and figure out that Liam Kynes is a smart ecologist, the whole point is that character's thinking is completely wrong, and it's only really at the point of his oh no, I've been wrong my entire boom, whoops. But at least he died knowing that, I suppose. But it's a bizarre shift, I think, and it's a major theme of Dune, and I think the evolution theme's not obvious, and it runs through everything else. So if Dune has more than one theme, arguably you go with the catastrophic hero and the nature of ecology, and our ecological problems of our times, hydraulic despotism, systemic thinking. Um, and it's interesting. I think I pointed out that maybe they haven't got this in the film because a movie production crew, if you want to call it that, the whole movie making machine is a systems operation. Really, if you know what I mean, it's full of, as much as there's creative people in there, it's a lot of systemic thinking. Interesting, I suppose. Let's see. Alma says the consequences of spice, more like the benefits, living for hundreds of years, seeing into the future, cinnamon in all your food. I like that one, Alma. Um, it'd be like eating South Asian every day. I used to put cinnamon in my coffee and my beer and my on my spuds. Um, quite a long, long time ago. I used to cook with cinnamon quite a lot, and I dare say it's probably to do something to do with June. The consequences, though, Alma, are pretty bad if you withdraw. And if you can't get it for a little bit of time, you're dead. The full withdrawal from spice is fatal, and that's the true problem. Whenever we get to the God Emperor withholding his spice hoard, I suppose But yeah, yeah, it's great, isn't it? That's the thing about spice. Helps depending on what you want it for. Yeah, extends life, helps you travel across the universe, lets the Bene Gesserit. It's great for everybody, isn't it? It's so useful. But if you're addicted to it and you withdraw, you're dead. Hmm. The spice must flow. Soup pot. Still tent. Sorry, when she's grieving Leto and scared silly about Paul's future. Oh, hang on. Still tent. Oh, is this just to do with Jessica's character? Which is grieving Leto and scared silly, but I'm not sure if that's the thread you're going with. Yeah, I mean, it does bring a sense of humanity, if you know what I mean, too. But I never thought of Jessica as being a particularly colder, distant character. Particularly in the first part of June, it's more a lot of the other characters acting frostily to her because of the desire to go with the false notion that she's the traitor, if you see what I mean. Um, but yeah, don't get me wrong. I think it works fine actually. If it does make the character a bit more relatable on the screen, then why not? Um, but I've just always thought of Jessica as hard as nails. I don't know. And I've just read the book again. There's a lot more to her than that, but she's a highly intellectual um, problem solver, I would argue. And yeah, the little sort of I, I think if she was uncertain of herself, it would be for like a nanosecond, if you see what I mean. um, hmm. Randomly says, you think that the Atreides soldiers would be aware that Sardaukar can flank them simply by descending behind them? Well, yeah, the use of a foot soldier in space combat, etc., is all about bit pointless sometimes. I suppose we could take that argument back to Starship Troopers, etc. But why don't just drop a rock on the place from space? No amount of shielding is going to stop that, I suppose. But yes, there's lots of and again, I suppose that's one of the things that Frank Herbert has in the Dune universe is that there are military adaptations and evolutions that create changes. So because of shield technology, people revert to old-fashioned weapons like knives and blades and so on. Um, hmm. But yeah, and it causes all sorts of problems. I think even the idea of one suicide trip with a las gun firing at a shield, and we talk the idea of Leto II being vulnerable to a water pistol. There's always little, and I think Frank likes that a lot. I think the whole point he does make is that randomly is that the Atreides are so absolutely sure of themselves because of their shields. Um, hmm. If you see what I mean, it's their fatal flaw. It's the one thing that they think that because they have the shields, they're good. It's a bit the same with Doctor Yui. It's the absolutes that people take trust in that end up being the obvious. Oh, it couldn't possibly be Yui. Of course, it's Yui. Everything's shielded. We're fine. The shields will come down. You're not be fine. It's that kind of obvious. um, I don't know if like there's some of these stories sometimes. And I love stories like this. Have you ever heard of one about, is it like this Celtic warrior? And he goes before the druid, and make me immortal for the battle tomorrow. And the druid casts all these spells on him and goes, right, no matter what, you can't be killed in battle tomorrow. So out the guy goes with his swords and he's standing there ready to fight. I cannot be killed. And all his men are going, yeah, you can't die. And they charge. And the first happens is he gets 1, 2, 3, 4 four arrows in the chest and falls down, and it takes him to midnight to bleed to death. Have you do you know that one? He can't die that day, but nobody said anything about him getting horrifically mangled and wounded. It's I quite like those little loopholes, if you see what I mean. Yeah. Let's see. The intrigue of Jessica, says Alma, being suspected is not even mentioned. Yeah, but I did enjoy the tooth scene. Though it's sad that they gave nothing to Piter's screen time. I agree. And I also thought the way the Baron was caught there, I think it's a bit different in the book. And yeah, but it's Piter that kills Thufir, isn't it? So again, it's transferring stuff from the Baron onto the other characters. It's stripping, and I thought the Baron was very underused, and of course they've really. I mean, I was actually quite surprised to see the film as a 12 certificate. Obviously, very little blood in it. It's quite a stabby, slashy film in some ways, isn't it? But yeah, it's. I think it's very. I actually thought Piter's screen time is very. What? I think you could have put a doll on the screen. To be honest, no sense of that character at all, and it's nothing to do. I don't think it's anything to do with the actor. I don't know. Just Piter's just not right, and there's just too much missing from. I think it's the same with Thufir. I think both Mentats are interesting characters. Piter's a fascinating character, and his name is loaded as well. It has meaning. It's meant to. The character is meant to point you somewhere. But yes, the tooth I thought was pretty well done as well. With the shield, etc. I'm not too sure. But yeah, that crunch tooth, it was a bit. I have to say I agree with you there. The tooth is a great thing, I think, as well. It's one of those strange moments in the story. Alma says the Sardaukar would more than likely had knowledge of the Araking battlements more than the Atreides due to the Harkonnens' help. I'd say I'd argue the Sardaukar got probably pretty good knowledge of almost all the planets in the Imperium. If they're the Emperor's shock troops, Alice Krieg random is saying was the best Jessica from Children of Dune. Yeah. I actually thought both actresses across the TV series. I tend to think of them as one thing. Played Jessica quite well, but one of the problems with that is actually changing actors, I suppose, because yeah, it was a wee bit. But yeah, she was very good. Yeah, the right kind of presence. A part of me still thought I don't really know how old. Oh god, I'm so bad at this. Hang on, Rebecca Ferguson is, but she seemed a little bit young for Paul's mother. I thought. Maybe she's just youthful looking. I don't know. Let's have a wee look. Keith says, like the logic paradox of the man who's to be executed on a random day of the net week, so he will be surprised. Yeah. Those are I love those wee paradoxical. They're you'll find them in Shakespeare and classical drama and stuff. It's whenever no man can kill me, but I'm a woman. Oh no, I hadn't thought of that. It's the thing you hadn't thought of that will get you. Was it just me, or did Jason Momoa say "Let's fight like demons" in the trailer? Then they fight like demons in the movie. No, that's what happened. I'm pretty sure he said that. It's the way they've cut and manipulated a few things probably for the trailer, I would say. But yeah, that's pretty much what I thought. Randomity. P. Walker says, I think there'll be a lot of pressure on Denny to make an extended cut. And BBP says extended cut for the win. Give me a Lord of the Rings, give me a 4 hours of Dune, build me a movie worthy of Frank Herbert, says Alma Light of Solar. Very good, people, very good indeed. I mean, there is the rumor, isn't there, that was it Jason Momoa has been saying that there's a good, is it a 4 hour cut or something? This is a thing that happened with the David Lynch film as well. But absolutely, I think do you know what? If just release the whole lot on cut. I mean, if it's going to be a DVD thing that you can watch at home, why bother cutting anything? Just give us as much Dune as you filmed and put it in order. My understanding is there's enough of Hans Zimmer's soundtrack to go around anyway. So there we go. Rebecca Ferguson says Random is only 13 years older than Timothy Chalamet. What's he's about 26, isn't he, or something like that? I heard. So that yeah, well, she's not that old. Yeah. Um. Hmm, I think she did a good job, actually. I have to say. I thought where the character came to life most effectively was, in the ornithopter where it goes about her business, and I thought actually here we go, and especially the voice, kill him, that bit. Sorry if that spiked on your on the microphone there, but that I thought, oh, there we go, and I want that's Jessica Atreides there, or that's Jessica. Um, at that point, I thought, oh, here we go. This is where we get to see Jessica kick off, and I was actually thought that at that point, a lot of I suppose the things that I was considering maybe slight criticism of the character just kind of faded in my mind. I thought, yeah, she's going to kick butt here. This woman should be extremely dangerous. The fact that she is extremely dangerous, it's part of her character. I think that there's very little fear in her. Let's see. Alma's saying, I really hope they do Children of June and June Messiah. Excuse me. And P. Walker saying, Denis, I think, has indicated he'd stop at June Messiah. Yeah. One of the things I thought was interesting, guys, is as much as they talked about chopping the book in two, June, that is, June's actually divided into three parts. And I thought it would be much more natural in a sense, maybe to have gone for three shorter films, three 2 hour films rather than try to go for two and a halves or something like that. But I always sort of think back to the way that, Back to the Future 2 and 3 were kind of released on top of each one. That was a really good idea. I remember going to see them both and just really enjoyed it. I think you had about a week or so between the two, something like that. But yeah, it would be really nice. I think Children of June, sorry, June Messiah, Alma and Paul, or Alma and P. Walker, is a kind of logical conclusion that if you split the book in two and put that in as an ending, I think it gives you a point to end from a cinematic point of view, and it would give a jumping off point. I think for the director, one of the big problems is if we film June and only June, then what you have is a Messiah um, at the end of it, and it's the problem with David Lynch's Dune. I mean, I'm somebody who only ever I saw David Lynch's Dune, then many years later went to the books. So the fact that what happens at the end of it kind of doesn't make sense. But I walked away from that thinking Paul Atreides is the Kwisatz Haderach. He is the Messiah, and you don't think any. You go, yeah, what a positive character he is, and you don't really realize anything at all about the lessons being pointed at you. So you can't get a proper sense of the Dune story unless you go to. And I'd argue that the whole thing. Frank Herbert said that the whole thing originally was written in his mind as a trilogy. So if you want the original Dune story, as Frank foresaw it, it's up to children, end of Children of Dune. But I think that Dune Messiah will give a natural cut-off point to the Dune series there for Danny, and I also think that it's the only way that you can show that Paul Atreides is truly dangerous. He's a very meant to be a very charismatic hero, but this guy is, he's a problem. We don't get that from the David Lynch's film at all. He's the chosen one. He is the Kwisatz Haderach. But yeah, wouldn't it be just nice to see the original Dune series, the whole lot of it done? I think I'm personally just dying to see the God Emperor on screen done well. I think. Mm. With Jamis being cast as black, does that imply that his challenge of the white outsiders was somehow based on race? I don't think so. We've talked a wee bit about this. Well, I don't believe in race. Random it is. I'm sure you know by now. But in terms of the color of people's skin, etc., that's you know, um, the challenge of the white outsider, etc. I don't know what they're doing with it, and I think they're simply trying to bring a representation. This is a Hollywood, this is a movie industry thing. We must see X, Y, and Z on the screen for it to be representative, if you see what I mean. Um, I don't know. I thought Jamis was far too old. That was my problem with the character. He's a 19-year-old. He's not much as much as Paul's meant to be 15. He's meant to be 19, and the only reason why Stilgar keeps him around is he's a very good killer, though he has, of course, a child with Hera, etc. So there's a lot to Jamis, but he's a belligerent and highly violent and dangerous individual and uncontrollable by Stilgar. That the point in the book's made that if as much as everybody goes on to the "I'm a friend of Jamis" thing, the point in the book's very made very clearly that if Jamis beats Paul, he's dead anyway, because Stilgar is going to kill him, no matter what. So as much as Jamis invokes the Amtal rule, regardless of that, in the book, he's dead. Either that or he'll kill Stilgar and become the head of the tribe. If you see what I mean. So I thought his character was. I think his character was should have been more developed. I think they should have given it to a younger actor, um, and it is really meant to represent adolescent male aggression, uncontrolled adolescent, and it's a lesson for Paul in many ways because Paul could be like Jamis. And I think you get the sense that the Gom Jabbar at the start is that's the idea. That if, Benny Gesserit, it's implied in the film, I think, rather than the book, that if you're a monster, we're going to kill you now. Because we can't have a monster with these powers. Of course, maybe it's having those powers that makes you a monster in the first place. Hey, Sootpot says, hey, you've almost 2,000 subscribers. Wow, I want to start a cult laughing out loud. It's a subscription. They're not followers. But I don't like that term. But yeah, somebody sent me a wee thing today saying, "You'll remember this when you get to 100,000 subscribers instead of two." And I had to point out that I don't even have 2,000 subscribers. But yeah, more the merrier. I think. Mm, I don't know. I think we did a few things not right at the start with the sound on the original Dune films or videos that I made, and I think that drove a lot of people away. But I also get the sense that some people look at me as a wee bit too highbrow, which I don't know. I hope you don't think that of my videos and my station at all. Um, it just gives you. I'm actually just doing this for fun now. There's no professional aspect to it at all. Um, but mm, Thank you very much. Yeah, I don't want to start a cult. No, not in the slightest. That's what Frank Herbert says. Isn't that the quote from Frank? That if anybody ever asks you if you want to start a cult, do what I do. Run like hell. There you go. That's an exact quote from Frank Herbert. I hope you like that one, Sootpot. Alma says, I was surprised how much they didn't pull the diversity card as much. A lot of the people in ethnicity seemed pretty much what would be expected. I would imagine that the Fremen should have a mix of all sorts of people within them, and you know, uh, I don't think the diversity card is pulled much. I think there's a deliberate thing with the late Kynes character to we need more women and we need more female representation in the film. Granted, that's fair enough, but it was just a bad choice, I think, and because it was done to that character, it's ultimately going to affect one of the biggest themes and we have to remember, by the way, guys, you're talking about the messianic hero and the catastrophic hero. These themes keep going. The ecological theme's a big part. Much as it's gone by the sixth book, it's a huge part all the way through the Dune series. It's hard to read any of Dune without getting a sense of ecology about it. Um. So yeah, I don't know. I got It's interesting. See, race is a very interesting question in Dune because technically, no one you're looking at on screen is a baseline human. There's nobody from Earth, and so they're all slightly different. You get a few wee talks about that in the book, for example. And the Fremen's slight differences. Their upper, is it the lower intestine, I think. Um, but I think there's so much, as Alan was saying, about diversity, religion, ethnicity, skin color. But there's a lot of these things that are what's the word? I suppose hybrid. I suppose religion is also a melange, isn't it? In June, all of these things are blended, and as much as the Fremen, for example, are Buddhist Islamic, um, with Zen, hence Zen Buddhism, Sufi Islam. There's all sorts of other cultures aspects in there too, and I think a lot of what it was interesting is seeing as a global audience respond to this film, certainly in a way that I'm unaware of that maybe happened in David Lynch's Dune back in 1984, is that a lot of people see their own culture or their own, their own ethnicity or their own religion. They see parts of their own lives in the book, and that part of what they believe in, I think, has survived, as we say, 30,000 years into the future or something like that. Hmm. P. Walker says, I think the treatment of Jamis in the movie was very well done. I agree. I thought it was excellent. P. Walker, but my concern is I thought he should be a wee bit younger and we should have had more of him. That I think I said that in my wee review. There should be a good bit more of Jamis there. I think we just to explore. I suppose it's his character that is a mirror to Paul's in some ways at that point. And it's a good juxtaposition, and the lessons that Paul learns from it, I think, are quite important. But I thought he was. I'll be honest with you. I thought the actor was far too charismatic. Um, I thought he did far too good. I thought he looked. I thought he wasn't nasty enough. He wasn't belligerent enough. He was very charismatic. He looked great on the screen. This guy, and again, we're presented him with him as a friend. I'm a friend of Jamis. This the tribal chant that everybody talks about the things that he's done. And because you're getting that sense of him, it's we also know who Jamis is if we've read the book and what he's about. Um, hmm. But yeah, I thought the actor was brilliant. I thought P. Walker. I thought he should have had a bit more to work with, and I thought they should have made him much more aggressive. I think, but we should have seen him. That process of how he treats Paul goes on for a bit, and it's actually a constant whittling away at Stilgar's authority as well. Randomly, let's see. Randomly says, I like Bardim's reading of the line, is he toying with him, nodding back to Jessica. Yeah. And actually, the bit in the action there where that moves up, whereas you actually do get a sense that Paul, well, how the Fremen might look, that he's, toying with him because Jamis is totally outclassed. And I actually thought that part of the acting by the actor who played Jamis, I thought that bit where he knows he's doomed, I thought that was really good. And sometimes it's a wee bit tricky to get a sense of the actors with the blue eyes, because the eyes are mirrors to the soul, as they say. But a lot of what's expressions there. But yeah, I thought it was a very good scene. I just thought there should be more of it and it extended a bit. Keith says, "Oh, come on, dog, a cult would be fun." No, culture is what I prefer to rather than cults, Keith. I think there's a media death cult, isn't it, on YouTube? Uh, he's starting a cult. Keith Colby would be known as Sloanies. Oh, okay. The Sloanies, the Sloans. Shloes would be the old pronunciation, wouldn't it? As the ancestor of the Sloan. Well, the Sloans are your Irish equivalent to the Sardaukar, if you want. Host, army, or horde in the ancient tongue, and that's what we did. Understanding, I suppose. So I'm told. And they clop faster too. Ah, dear. Let's see. Clot faster. Super. You were talking about Fremen adaptations, says Super. Yeah. Hang on. The most interesting part of the book. Sorry, I missed a comment there. I'm just going to backtrack. Super. Alma says the most interesting part of the book was the Zen Sunni beliefs in the Orange Catholic Bible, at least in the concept of the Luddite nature of future humanity. Yeah, I think that the whole appendix of June on that is really interesting. Excuse me. From where I'm from, I suppose Alma is a real eye opener in some ways, um, and it's something that I always found fascinating about the Dune universe. One of the things that would have attracted me to the books originally would be mythology and the religion within it, and how myths use religions or legends use myths, etc. And Luddite, yeah. And I said we've got very little of the Butlerian Jihad, haven't we, in the new film? Not even a kind of basic explanation. Um, hmm. Yeah, I mean, there's Buddhism, there's Islam. You get quotes from the Bible, and again they're all slightly changed. But you get the whole Orange Catholic. That's meant to be your pardon me your Christian faith. Two sides of that. There's a fair bit of it. There's Judaic representation within it as well, and it's worth reading, guys. If you haven't paid much attention, we've discovered this over the last few months. A lot of people don't read the appendices of June. Oh my goodness! So you missed out a mini story and all sorts of things. So they're absolutely worth checking out if you haven't read them. Hmm. Oh, that was it. We should be hang on. They clot faster too. Talking about the Fremen. God, yeah, that was the evolutionary changes. Yeah, and we don't. And again, that episode where we talk about that, we're comparing the Fremen to the Sardaukar. You don't have that with the Sardaukar because you have to assume that their population is picked from all over the Imperium, brought there to this prison planet, and if you survive, maybe you'll end up in the Sardaukar. I suppose that's quite interesting. And I suppose if you think about it, you could end up with all sorts of people within the Sardaukar. Do we reckon they'll bring Sting in to do fake? He could make a good emperor, maybe, but he's too old. I will kill him. I don't know. Is it the height of Sting's acting powers? I know he's done a few things since that maybe were better, but I was chatting a bit about that, Alma, that he used to do a wee bit of acting on the BBC, on the radio as well. As much as there's a very good Lord of the Rings audio drama, he did I think he did the Titus Groom. I think he was Stairpike. Hmm. They should bring Sting back as the Emperor. We've got to go. You need a bit of. We'd have to do that. What is it called? Deep fake. We'd have to make him look a bit younger. We were all having a good chat the other night, folks, about who you might think was a good Emperor, and I think I had a real hard time trying to think of an actor. He was young enough that kind of had the right. And I kept coming up with people for other roles. I think, but in the end, I thought Dev Patel would make a good Emperor. To be honest with you, had the right. Having seen him in the Green Knight recently, I think he'd be pretty good. Hmm. I'm attracted to the book due to the stance on technology, how it in itself becomes as addictive and deadly as the spice itself. Absolutely, Alma. Um, it's hmm, and it's the reliance. Yeah, we tech. I mean, it's interesting. You can see it now, can't you? Um, Addiction to technology, and even how technology physically affects you. If you've got RSI or any of those kind of things. Sorry, Alma, you just said it. Actually, he'd make a brilliant Emperor. I just caught that out of the side of my eye. Tom Hardy as the Emperor. Would he make? I don't know. He'd make a pretty good Casimir Fenrir. Yeah, he would make a good Emperor, wouldn't he? But they might make him want to wear a mask. He'd make a good Fremen. He's used to wearing masks in parts. He was a very good Mad Max, I have to say. Um, mm, real concern over who was going to be the new Mad Max. He nailed it. Absolutely nailed it. Did Dune shape Fremen pathology? Hmm. Most likely. If we take the literal meaning of pathology, then yes. um, Tom Hardy as Emperor says, "Oh yeah, I'll go with that." Is it a requirement that all of the Harkonnen be bald? It must be. It must be. Get your black uniform and get your head shaved at the door. I don't know. Again, David Lynch. I suppose we had a lot of the Harkonnens with red hair and that visual indicator that they're to Jessica. But I don't know. It's funny that you have people all kind of. There's a very uniform thing to the different peoples and houses, isn't there? Hmm. There must be a lot of hair cutter, hairdressers about on, or maybe they have a little Holtzman field that they just run over their head and that's it. So, about the fatal outcome of any hours in the desert? Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's fundamental to everything about the Fremen soup pot is tied into the ecology of the planet. Even to a degree that the reasons why they practice stuff like eugenics and that's leaving the blind to the desert, etc. That kind of thing. Um, and also so obviously they've evolved somehow to create with a level of dependency on the technology that they have. So the Fremen wouldn't be much use in the desert without their still suits, that kind of thing. But they're highly specialized, I think, is the point that Herbert makes about the Fremen. And specialization is death is another point he makes, I think. Hmm. But yeah, absolutely. The other thing is that it seems that the Fremen go from arguably what I would call hell world to hell world. They don't seem to stop anywhere nice. And the wanderings of the Zen Sunni wanderers, as they were known, the children of Mizir, isn't it? But they seem to go from planet to planet, but I don't know why they haven't picked somewhere nice to go. If you see what I mean, probably I don't know the people follow them and persecute them. Oh dear, oh dear. Let's just yeah. So who knows about the whole Harkonnens being baldies? Maybe it's just the heart. I suppose we haven't seen Fade yet. I mean, maybe he has some hair. Maybe he will break this follically challenged kind of tradition that the Harkonnens have. Hmm. Let's just catch up. Randomly says, Alma Light of Solar Adam Driver. To Alma Light of Adam Driver is Fade Ruther. Mm. I think you would feel a bit typecast, though. Would you not think? I mean, God, I do feel sorry for any actor that's been in the last two Star Wars films of awful. Sorry to any Star Wars fans, which I am one of, I suppose. But I don't really know where that. Nothing to do with the actors at all. Just writing. Writing and story really bad. He watched the Harkonnen like that because of the great environment on Gidi Prime, I think. Well, but Gidi Prime's meant to be an industrial. Yeah, there we go. Sorry, Alma's right on top of it there. An absolute toxic shithole. I was about to go there. Thank you, Alma. Probably why they're all bald. Yeah, it's probably something to do with the water. No, I think Alma's contemplating Adam Driver for the Emperor. Oh no, that was for Fade Routha, wasn't it? Yeah. Yeah, I don't know who'd make a good Fade. Possibly Adam Driver. Well, crap, says Karen. Hi, Karen. We were chatting about you earlier anyway, so not to worry. Missed 85 minutes of the stream. God, have we been going on that long? Goodness gracious me. How are you keeping, Karen? Any questions or want to share any of your experiences? Far away. I don't know how many times you've seen the film now. Keith says they're highly specialized, and that doesn't stop their jihad from killing 80. Brilliant. Quite right. Dear, oh dear. It's, yeah. And of course, they're always just statistics, aren't they? We don't ever get it's all of the mass genocidal stuff is just casual asides in the Dune universe, I think. Let's see. As Fed, you need a kind of mirror image of Paul, red haired. Like someone says, mashallah. Carol says the nice places probably all have people who don't want them there. there's got to be. I don't know. You think? I suppose the problem for the Fremen is that once they landed on, I don't know. There's things that don't quite add up. The Fremen are there before the discovery of the spice, but you'd imagine that the spice is there before it's discovered or not. So I don't think they can leave unless they take some of the planet with them. Let's see. If the Fremen are such badass fighters, how did the Harkonnens kill so many of them? Well, I think it's maybe just that the Harkonnens just again, they might be great in hand-to-hand combat and stuff, but you shoot them with guns. They don't wear shields. And I imagine it's generally that it seems that the Harkonnens kill plenty of it's maybe the local populations in the cities and towns, villages, as opposed to the deep desert. They're much, Fremen, they're much harder. But yeah, just because the Harkonnens are brutal doesn't make them particularly good fighters. I would say it's the kind of point I think it's made with Fade, isn't it? That he's as much as he's training in the gladiatorial games on Giri Prime all the time, his opponents are always drugged and disabled, or he always has some kind of advantage. Carol saying, I think Barry Keoghan is highly likely to be Fade. He's made some suspicious tweets related to that. And he fits the role, I think. I don't know the actor. Once again, Karen, I'm really bad at. I used to kind of be all clued in on all this sort of stuff. I don't know who anybody is anymore. Oh, right. From I just saw him. That's Barry Keoghan. Is he Irish? He is. I just watched him. Caron, that's the actor that's in. I didn't realize that was his name. He's in The Green Knight. He's really good in it. Really good. Yes, he would make a good Fade, I think. Yeah. I've got to get better at learning sort of modern actors' names. I'm appalling with names in general, folks, to be honest with you. Also great. We thought about him before in Montreal. Nadine does the Hajj. The Denai does the Hajj. Is that a reference to the initial Zen Sunni slavery? It's the reason for it's the reason for the migration. And it's to do with the Commission of Ecumenical Translators. It's something to do with, at that point, they're trying to create a hodgepodge of the religions. It's about the disputant religions, and that is the reason why the Fremen start migrating. They're denied the Hajj, which is interesting because then the Hajj then becomes a different Hajj on different planets. I think it's an interesting thing. But that's why they denied us the Hajj. Is that a reference to the initial Zen Sunni slavery? It's to do with it's got something to do with that, the CET and the attempt to produce, the Orange Catholic Bible, this great act of hubris, if you like. 4 times in the cinema, Carol says. Fortunately, only one of those was suboptimal, and even that was because of distracting people rather than issues with the cinema itself. I consider myself lucky. That's a sad state of affairs, Carol, isn't it? Where you're considering yourself lucky that you've seen the film okay every time. We shouldn't even be thinking about that at all. We should have all gone to see the film and all seen it, regardless of what format it's in. We should have been able to see the thing and hear it. The sheer number of stories about bad cinema experiences is incredible. I've never ever heard of a film where, and people aren't wanting to slag off the film, but they've seen so little of it, heard so little of it, or have been bombasted. It's not been a good experience for a lot of people, and I think that's really sad because the film is pretty good, and it's just if you just some issues with wherever you happen to be seeing it. But I think it's sad that you think you're lucky, Carol. It's a sad state of affairs. Alice's friends are basically space romantic. Yeah, they're nomadic. They're moving about. There's a good combination. There's aspects of them as well. By the time you get to the God Emperor of Dune, Alma, they're the Northern Irish. And I've found some people finding that quite a funny statement. But if you have a, whenever they become the museum Fremen, there's something else altogether. And there's a number of cultures that the Fremen are based on. One of the interesting things I keep seeing is some commentators talking about is it North African and Middle Eastern um, representation on the screen for Fremen, and because of how the Fremen are viewed, but they're based heavily on the Bedouin, but they're also based on the Bushmen of southern Africa quite a lot, and there's a number of aspects to them as well. That many cultures are make up the Fremen, I would say. Hmm. Soup pot, my viewing was shit. Excellent. I've never actually got to read a proper little sentence with shit, a shit emoji or emoticon or whatever you call them these days. But thank you for that, soup pot. It's too common. It's too common an experience, and I really, quite frankly, I'd love to hear Denis Villeneuve's. I'd like to hear what he has to say about it because he must be appalled. Um, I mean, if I'd made this film with this level of detail, this money, this sound, this visual experience, and put it out, and I was hearing that so many people were having not because of my film, but because of or somehow the way it's translating to the screen, I don't know, but I would be absolutely appalled. I'd be worried sick, to be honest with you, and I would not be happy. If it's making its money, it's making its money, but I don't know. It's like recording a new album and then playing it to people underwater or something. It's been really bad. Suboptimal is a good way of putting it. And of course, we're all saying, "Oh, once we've had an opportunity to see it properly." What does that mean? We should all be seeing it properly, no matter where we see it. Now that I've had a chance to see it properly, I give the film a 1 out of 10, and then give it a 7 out of 10. It's just too much, and I think he's got somebody like. Somebody might, I'd like to hear what Denis Villeneuve has to say about it, to be honest with you, because it's as much, I think it's a real shame. And I think I actually said, folks, this is nearly the film that nearly killed cinema for me because I went to see it. It was appalling in the cinema, and I came home and watched it. It's just great. So my point is, why go at the minute with COVID, etc., why bother going to the cinema ever again? To be honest, a big enough TV in the house, and the scaling and size, and. But if it's a love letter to cinema, I'm yet to be convinced. And as I said, it's my own experience, but we're just hearing too much of this. Um, and I've had a look at other people's reviews and had a look at Dominic from Is It Film and Page. Same experience. Second time fine, and even some of them making people a bit ill. I think it's a bizarre it's a bizarre set of conversations to be having about a film. Uh, let's see, just catch up from the basic space from my views. Our Conans use scorched earth, yeah, just burn and kill everything. And artillery, isn't it, is the thing that they bring to the party in the book, I believe. Stealing shit, stabbing people, making gas. Karen, oh right, he was in the Green Knight. Yes, he was. Yeah, might even look cool. But yeah, he's what's that? What did you call him again? Sorry, I'm really bad with it. Barry Keoghan is the in the Green Knight as the kind of person that he helps along the road, and then becomes kind of is the bandit. Um, the lesson on charity in the Green Knight. Anybody hasn't seen it, by the way, Green Knight is a love letter to cinema. I would say it's a great film, and I haven't seen it on the cinema screen, but I wish I had. It's really good. It even look cool. Yeah, I think once a mass jihad takes place, most continue to justify itself. What stopped Paul's jihad? Himself. As far as I remember, Soot Pot, the reason why he turns away from it all is, I mean, he goes for it properly, and then by the end of, he does turn away. Um, it's because he can't, as far as I recall, Soot Pot, he can't do what Leto II does. He can't lose his humanity, and that's why he turns away from it. And I suppose at that point, his golden path dies, and Leto II's becomes the next golden path. Randomity says, signing out for the night. Great job. Thank you, Randomity. For anyone here that hasn't seen the movie, just go see it. I'd agree with Rand Dominic. Go see it. Make up your own mind. We're getting a range of experiences here, people. But my advice is, if you haven't seen it, check, ask your friends, talk around, get those, find out where people have had good experiences, because there's, you know, too many bad experiences, and it seems to be potluck. Um, which is, it's very sad. It's a very sad state of affairs, I have to say. I'm a bit sad. Oh, hang on. Just go see. Karen says, and he's apparently, I missed something there. Karen. Oh, Dev Patel is great friends with. Is that who you mean? And he's apparently friends with Timothy. Laughing out loud. Oh, there you go. Yeah, Dev Patel's been in some pretty good things over the years. I hadn't seen him in anything for a while, and I'm a big fan of them. I read a lot of Matter of Britain literature, so anything to do with King Arthur is the Matter of Britain. So I've been a fan of Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, the epic poem, for a long, long time. And I actually, whenever you see things like this made, like the Green Knight, you tend to go, oh, what's this going to be? Because it was made a wee while back, I think, as Sword of the Valiant with Sean Connery. Is one of the worst films ever made. And I think almost all Arthurian films are crap. Almost all of them, they're all rubbish, with the exception of Excalibur. And I thought that, oh, you thought you meant Barry, not Dev. Thank you, Karen. I think that for the first time, The Green Knight is a film that can be put next to Excalibur and go, there's two Matter of Britain films that are amazing. So I don't know if you haven't seen The Green Knight, if you like King Arthur stuff, it's a really, really faithful adaptation to the poem, but it ends before the poem does. So there we go. Alma says, I'm a bit sad the rating is PG-13. I wanted to see a bit more horrific. I genuinely, there's so much, there's a lot of adult themes within Dune, Alma. I thought that it would have been a 15. Um, and as I said, we've had it toned down a lot. There's a lot of certain unpalatable aspects of, particularly like the Baron's character, that are gone. Alma, so Berber, the Bedouin, the ancient Hebrew, and for sure, yeah, I'm not familiar with African peoples beyond the Sahara. The Garamantes and the Tuareg who lived on ancient lake in the middle of Sahara on an oasis and aquifer before drying up in the 6th century. These being what the Fremen are inspired and alike in history. Yeah, there's so many. The Bedouin, as I said, there's a whole pile. And you'll find aspects of other cultures in there too. And Central American cultures, other European and Asian cultures. There's all sorts within the Fremen. They really are a melange people in a sense. Excuse the use of the word, but it's the right word. They're a blend of many, many different cultures. And Herbert uses some old ideas of cultures, particularly, like he talks about the Harkonnens being descended from Mamelukes and Parthians. I think he's just throwing names out there at that point. He's not got a great understanding of those people. But yeah, there's loads. As I said, if you get to what the Fremen become, Alma, then there's a lot of and it's to do with the Orange Catholic thing. But if particularly for those who've read God Emperor of Dune, if you want to know a lot of the Irish stuff in it, then it's published the same year as and there's a lot of Irish stuff actually in Dune as well. It's published the same year as The White Plague, which is his other book on Ireland. It's well worth it. You want to have a look at how Herbert uses Irish myth. There's a rather, I must look it up for you at some point. I'll try and get this for the next live broadcast. There's a rather good article written by somebody on the use of Irish mythology by Frank Herbert. It's an old one. I must see if I can dig it out for you. Excuse me. But yeah, the ancient world's full of wonderful cultures. I'm a classicist, so it's my playing pit. And I'm doing a wee video at the minute, still writing it actually on. I keep finding out more and more stuff on the Greek myths surrounding the Atreides, and particularly the myths of the Pelopid line. I've actually just had a wee bit of insight, folks. Possibly I might say this, but I'll have a think about it. But see what you think. I think I've had a bit of insight into who Dev and Marty are. Not Dev, sorry, we're talking about Dev Patel. Who am I thinking on? Marty and Daniel are. And it's something to do with nets and the Atreides myth, actually. which is interesting. Hmm. Yeah, I think Dev Patel's a great actor. He's had some really good films. Haven't seen him in a wee while. Can't remember. So apart from The Green Knight, and I just thought, wow, yeah, he's a very impressive actor, and he's got the right. Um, we're talking about the right kind of presence. He needs a kind of regal kind of grace that can be utterly imposing up until the very last minute when it all crumbles. You need an actor who can do that. But you need a character, an actor, preferably a character actor with absolute presence, really good. And I think that's just the one that popped into my head of all the kind of modern younger actors. Because as much as the Emperor's about 70, he looks about 25 to 30. I think Excuse me. What about Lord of the Rings? Isn't that an Arthurian esque thing? Laughing out loud. It's got a fair chunk of Arthurian myth in it, Alma, but it borrows heavily from a lot of other cultures which are well outside the matter of Britain. So there's a lot. There's Finnish. There's a lot. Yeah, both Tolkien and C.S. Lewis just borrow heavily from mythology. Um, Language is Tolkien's thing, really. It's more that's using these old now. He retells quite a lot of them, to be honest. Hmm. But yeah, the matter of Britain is a body of literature that's now nearly goodness. Let me see. Yeah, coming up to about 1,500 years old, I'd say. There's a lot of stuff there, and you can include Shakespeare in there as well. Liked him a lot in the film Lion. Haven't seen that one. Oh, yeah. Again, Karen, I used to be an absolute movie nut, and I don't know. I don't get to the cinema much anymore, but that wasn't just because of COVID. It's just a life thing, I suppose. Am I correct in thinking that believe different golden paths to differ from prescient to present? Yeah. I forget your meaning there, Sitpot. It's Paul's golden path up until the point where he abandons it, and then it's gone. And the point where Leto the second takes up the golden path, if I remember correctly, that's when Paul's golden path dies. Um, it's gone. So yeah, and I think personally think the golden path is part of the warning about dangerous heroes. That it's the vision of the hero, and ultimately, as much as we're told about the golden path, and Paul can see it, and Leto the second can see it, they're the only people who can see it, and we've only got their word for it. If you see what I mean. You could easily argue that it's Hitler's thousand-year Reich is Hitler's golden path. If you see what I mean, we have all sorts of these kind of political ideas. Their ideologies are raison d'etre. The thing about the golden path is it's our justification for not hating Paul, for and Leto the second. It's the justification that we need to accept what they do. As somebody points out, despite slaughtering 80 billion people, we still like Paul. And then it turns out, oh, I can't be bothered to finish what I started. We really do. It is one of those books that really makes you ask very hard questions of yourself, I think, sometimes. You could transfer Hitler over on top of Paul and go, okay, Hitler's killed X. What if he stopped and went, oh, I'm sorry, I can't do it anymore. I was bad. I made a terrible mistake. Oh, I shouldn't have killed all these people. Whoops. Oh, hey, that's okay. No, it's not. You've killed billions of people. You're an absolute monster. Should be no justification for it. To me anyway, it's as much as it's still a good old science fiction story. If we want to ask ourselves the hard questions about these characters, they are hard, difficult to answer. Sharon, Dennis is on record saying Jim was 100% going to be PG-13, despite his R-rated filmography, because he read Dune at 14 and therefore felt it was important others that age can see his interpretation. If you read Dune as a Bildungsroman, if you read it when you were 14 or 15, a teenager, and you read it as a coming of age novel, it is one way to read it. And I'm one of those readers that never. And I've read a lot of science fiction. I'm a heavy reader from a very early age. I mean, I've read Dante's Inferno Um, when I'm about 10 or so. I read that kind of stuff at that age. So June wouldn't have been a bother to me. It just didn't, in terms of reading, it didn't come across my radar when I was younger. Um, and I ended up studying science fiction at university, encountered it there, and the whole point of it was that it was noticeable by its absence, if you like. We didn't study it, we didn't go near it, and it was considered too much to deal with, too big, too long, too complicated. Um, So I've never read it that way. I can't look back at it as a teenager and go, oh, I thought, hey, that's just like my life as a teenager. And we get that, the teenage adolescence and stuff like that. But it's no, it's I mean, just as I don't think, as much as a lot of science fiction's aimed at teenage boys at that time, if you know what I mean, that's part of the market. I think Herbert was trying to go for a different market as well, and it's a very adult book. And well, I think it's a book that would appeal to many different ages, I suppose. But I can't comment on that. But I've certainly read it many. I've read it in my 20s, and I've read it in my 30s, and I've read it in my 40s, and I pretty much read it the same way. I think. Well, I mean, got the same sense of the book. I've read the books different ways, but yeah, and again, as I said, maybe it is one of those things that dolls read differently to a 15-year old. And I say it probably reads differently to 15-year-old girls as it does to 15-year-old boys. Um, as much as you've got Paul and again, we're talking about old science fiction markets. I don't know, but I catch up with Mads Mikkelsen would be good for an Emperor. We've heard that one bandied about a lot, Alma. I think he's pretty much good in most things he does these days. So he's very Mads Mikkelsen, isn't he? um, Alma says, though, I hope there isn't a scene where he ties a rope and whacks Paul on the balls. Fair enough. Oh, that was harsh. I could tell you a story about that, Alma, but I'm not going to. Oh, dear. Carol says, yeah, I'm always shocked to hear people say they read Dune at 14, laughing out loud. Maybe if you grow up as a teenager in a snowy Quebec, staring at a nuclear power plant for breakfast. Goodness gracious. Well, it sounds very Simpsons, that. What about 15-year-old non-binaries? We're non-binary. Non one of two. Right, okay. Yeah, I'm catching up with the whole sort of gender identity thing these days, Keith. I honestly don't know how they would read it, to be honest. I think there's enough for everybody in it. And I think for people of non-binary, who identify as non-binaries, I think it would have an awful lot for them, to be honest with you. There's there's a lot of ways of looking at humanity in Dune, and that's what makes it interesting, I think. Um, I do. Well, the comment. Look here. Put it this way, folks. We're talking about the Baron's character being diminished quite a bit, and we're making him more and a presence and more building him up with music. Oh, I kind of got the humor in it, Keith, but I still have a go at answering these things, if you see what I mean. Um, and the LGBTQ plus, etc. I think it's a book that can appeal to all sorts of people. Um, and the sex, the whole sort of gender sex thing goes a wee bit mad, doesn't it? In the end. The interesting thing, I think, what's the big foible in Dune? What's the big sexual foible? And it's artificial insemination, isn't it? If Edric can have sex, I'm sure you're going to explain it. I'd have a go. I don't know. It's interesting, I suppose. We're seeing a lot of that sort of stuff at the minute, and I'll tell you something though. I don't. It's not that I have any bother with it or anything, Keith. It's the nomenclature and the use of language that's become a bit weird with it, with all the gender issues at the moment. I think, just from a linguistic point of view, there's a lot of stupidity in these arguments, particularly the pronoun arguments that kind of move around. They're different in different languages. Um, but science fiction in particular, three genders, four genders, all sorts of things. It's nothing new to science fiction. we've been there for decades, quite frankly. Um, and I suppose I'm Northern Irish. I live in a culture that's considered absolutely retarded in terms of modern life, and I use that in a non-pejorative sense, what we call retarded atavism. I'd say my thinking's pretty forward these days, but it always has been. But it's world's trying to catch up. I don't know. There's a lot of weirdness in the world these days. If Edric can have sex, I am sure you can explain it. Do steersmen reproduce naturally or artificially? Hmm. Um, that's a very good question because do you know something? So I just watched a bit of Frankie Boyle, and he was having a joke about getting someone to violin in zero G for I think it was it Jeff Bezos, and they were talking about whether the violinist could be doing it in zero G, and we were just thinking that every movement that they make is going to send them about. They'll have to be nailed down if you see. I would suggest, Alma, that the Bene Gesserit probably supply wives to the guild, or breeding partners, or something like that, and possibly that they reproduce before they go into the tanks. But I'd imagine, yeah, genes. It's an interesting question, Alma. Steven produced naturally, artificially. Well, I would say naturally. Um, just based on that question, is it done lines that they're not altered by space? Well, so imagine. I don't know. We could we could write up some science fiction romance, couldn't we, between a guild steersman and a Bene Gesserit? A bit of fan fiction there and work at it, I suppose. Um, I don't know. It's interesting. The Bene Gesserit, their one big foible is artificial insemination. I think it's to do probably with the Tylaxu, to be honest with you. Hmm. But an interesting question. Always happy to have an answer. Do, 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 do. Uh, Sorry if I didn't get that. That was a joke, Keith. I'm not used to having to answer all sorts of weird questions from my students. That I go for it every time, pretty much. Um, Spot on, Doc says super. One stance and inclination are unimportant. How you read a book is how you read a book, I think. Yeah. And I think there's an amazing range of variation, certainly within, you know, the range of different sort of gendered communities these days. I think Dune would appeal, actually. But there's a lot more science fiction out there that would actually probably appeal to them a lot, much more. And particularly sex and genders. Science fiction's had a good old plow into that for a long, long time. I'm reading some. I actually just read a cracking short story last night, which is a bit sexy, and it's all about alien sex. And it's a James Tiptree Jr. I just read the first story in 10,000 Light Years. I'm really, really enjoying, which is the pen name of Alice B. Sheldon. Uh, yeah, and I awoke and found me here on the Cold's Hill side. It's called, and I just thought that, and it's an alien. It's a weird alien sex story, and it's very good. And I've just started. Yeah, it looks like there's a fair bunch of them in there, and I think Alice B. Sheldon's quite well known for them. So there we go. So yeah, that would be a. It's all a bit xenosexual, I think. One thing I'm still confused about every time I see the movie, the Highliners seem more like portals than ships that actually travel from A to B. I agree, Karen. It looks like you sort of, it's. Have you ever looked at a hyper, what is it they call it? Hypercube. Is it like a spectrographic drawing of a hypercube where it folds in upon itself? But you kind of got the impression that they go through one side and come out the other, don't you? Um, Yeah, and again, I don't know. It seems strange, and when you see, you kind of look through one of the Highlanders and kind of see a part of a planet behind it, and it's not enough. You can't tell if it's cut off at the planet's through the hole, or is it a background planet? Well, at least I couldn't tell. Uh, so yeah, not too sure. Keith was saying, my wife was showing me this video where a Spanish-speaking lady is asking something about LGBTs. All right, and no one knew what the hell she was talking about. I quite like that. Is that the way it was spelled? Keith, that's very good. Karen said, but it seems deliberately cutting away so you can't be certain. Oh, just catching up with your point. Yeah, I would agree. I had a good look at it, Karen. I was kind of, because the way David Lynch does it with the Guild Navigator and then the whole the ship appearing, I thought that was kind of folding space, the Holtzman drive, something to do with the ships. I thought it would be nice to see that transition. Actually, I think steersmen start as Keith saying, I think steersmen start as base humans and mutate into their form from so much spice. Yes, I think that they mutate over time. Alma says, I hear about Northern Ireland. I think of fertilizer, car bombs, and the IRA. Yeah. You missed out an awful lot of other horrific things there. Yeah, and rain. Don't forget the rain. Yeah. Yes, Northern Ireland is up. Northern Ireland's like a modern day Arrakis. We're up for sale at the minute, and we're the hottest piece of real estate in the world, I'd argue. And Europe wants a piece of us, Britain wants a piece of us, everyone wants rid of us and wants a piece of us. It's quite funny. Most of all, Father Ted. I hear you're a racist now, Father. Father Ted is excellent. If you haven't, Father Ted's a lot truer to life than you. It's Father Ted's funny because it's true. There you go. In fact, trying to think of the last priest that ripped us off as a band. Actually, it was the university priest who hired us, never paid us, and ended up coming out. He was the dancing priest. I'll not say which university, but he came out in a ball gown at the end of it and was doing a bit of rockabilly dancing. Yeah, Father Ted's funny because it's true. I'm not joking either. But that's one of our two communities. But I think Father Ted's very much as an Irish show, I suppose. Not they're a wee bit. There's a few Northern Irish people turn up in it. Independent Republic of Northern Ireland. Why not? Isonomic Republic, I think. I suppose the interesting thing, folks, when we talk about the timeliness of the ecology thing, is that one of the things that people always go on about is either there won't be a united Ireland or there will be a united Ireland. I can tell you that there never will be, because it'll be a bunch of islands. So we're due for a good bit of flooding within the next 100 years, and Ireland will be an archipelago, sadly. And one of the reasons why Mr. Herbert's message is very, very timely, I think. Northern Ireland's a lovely place. It's just the people aren't very nice. And I don't know, if you look at mythology and history, the northern part of Ireland has always been different than the rest of Ireland. It has a different culture, and it's not the the Protestant culture that kind of came over in the 1600s, etc. It goes way back. And it's one of those things that even today, I'd say most Northern Irish people have very little in common with Irish people. But we've very little in common with English people, or Northern Irish people tend to have more common with the Scots than anyone else, I think. Australia will get a nice inland sea in the next 100 years, so sucks to be Anglo and Celtic. Indeed it does. California coast may not fare much better. California is not faring very well at the minute. Keith, is that where you're at? It seems to be on fire an awful lot. Alma says, I get free sea real estate where I'm stuck. Well, we're up on the north coast, Alma, of Northern Ireland, and up where the Giant's Causeway is, that part of it. So it's a very pretty part of the world here. What you call the Antrim coast, the Glens of Antrim. Yeah, I don't know. Northern Ireland's going through a big process of change. COVID's not been particularly kind to us, and our government is particularly stupid and religiously evil, I'm afraid. It's interesting because I'm actually getting adverts on my videos for the some of the political parties from here. So if I'm actually if they're actually there and I get an audience, I tell people not to vote for any of them. But there you go. But Free sea real estate where I am standing. Are you in Australia, Alma? I'm just wondering, they're talking about Australia. Keith, I think I'm assuming you're in California. Yes, in California. It's Santa Barbara. Ah. And Alma saying, I'm a desert person. I might end up trying to drink the ocean like the Fremen who went off world in their jihad if I went to. We'll never be short of rain or water in this country. Actually, do you know what? We very nearly came close in the summer there, which would have been unthinkable. They say there's 40, was it 50 shades of green in Ireland because we have 50 shades of rain. Mm. But it's funny you were saying that, Keith. We were watching some Californians talk about the heavy rain the other day and how unbelievably drastic this was for their lives. And we were actually laughing our heads off. It was the news feed, talking about, I think you had some quite heavy rain there the other day, and to us it looked like a mild drizzle. I have to say, Keith. So I don't know how you guys are. I hope you're not all that disassociated from rain. I thought it was very funny. But yeah, it's not. It isn't funny, really. I suppose what's happening to you can be sitting in your house one day and the next it's gone. We're in a particular depression on just off the River Bann. So in the future projections where I'm at, we're gone. We're underwater. There you go. Yes, I'm Australian. Says Alma. I'm pretty sad about the state of my nation. I think we're all there. I think, Alma, the world has changed too much, and our systems haven't changed too much with them. I think I'd love to get to I'd love to see a desert at night. I really would. Some of you guys are in America and Australia, and you have these things. We've no such thing. I've never, and I'd argue I know quite a bit about deserts at this point. But I imagine just I'm a big fan of looking at the stars, and I imagine just having no light pollution and just lying on your back and looking up at the heavens. Love to go some places, but they seem too dangerous these days, and I don't know. I'm not what you call a shrinking violet, so wherever I go, I tend to stick out like a sore thumb. So particularly certain places, I don't think I'd go down very well, but which is a real shame. I consider myself quite a good, well cultured person. I'm a very good communicator, but hell, the EU is less of a lunatic state than the US. Yeah, it's bonkers. It's wonderful, the stars in the Milky Way. It's so amazing. It is indeed. I love looking up at the stars. We've had estates recently built all around us and super bright LEDs on the streetlights. So we're losing more and more of our night sky here, and we're out in the countryside as well. But there we go. Well, listen, folks, I'll tell you what, it's been really nice chatting to you. It's just gone after midnight here. So very sadly, I'm going to wrap this up if you hope you don't mind. I'm going to try and do one of these wee things each week for the science fiction station. And just because I haven't done the PhD on Dune and so on, I'm basically always going to keep the conversation open on all things Dune. Sorry, stone in my shoe there. I'm actually looking forward to it. I'm going to try and do a wee video, hopefully within the next week, on the Peloponnesians and their influence on Dune. And as I said, I think I might have found something, though I'm not don't want to say too much about it. That might be a hint about Daniel and Marty and how Dune may have ended. But I've kind of had a couple of clues in an ancient Greek play, if you would believe that, that is all to do with the Atreides. Hopefully we'll have that. What the plan is, hopefully, to get back in to the swing of things and do a video each week. Proper, not just a wee live thing like the review there and stuff, but a proper video as we've been doing. Get back into the swing of things, because we did those 31 live streams in a row. And glad you could join us, Alma. Thank you very much. I'm really enjoying this. It's great to chat to people about their love of Dune and science fiction. And especially to chat to people all over the world about it. I'm absolutely delighted that we have a little international audience here. I think it's a great thing that a book like Dune and the use of something like YouTube can break all these barriers down for us. Doesn't matter who you are, what come and join the crack and the conversation. I think it's brilliant. I really do. I love the fact that we can get all these different ideas, different ways of looking at it, and well, a lot of us see our own cultures and our own faiths and our own identities within Dune. It's such an eclectic book. So I've really enjoyed doing this, and I have to say we'll keep at it and keep and spread the word. And who knows, we might have reached an almighty 2,000 subscribers. Not that I'm too worried about that, but as I said, I do this very much for the love of it. And if you do ever have any questions about Dune or the PhD or anything to do with science fiction, fire me a wee email at sciencefictionstation@gmail.com, and I'll be happy to answer, because I don't have that much to do these days. But listen, thank you very much, everyone. And if you haven't seen Dune, I hope your experience of the film is a good one. Chat to your friends, pick a good cinema, and for all of those who keep watching it again and again, I hope you start to pick up more and more, see little things in it that you enjoy, and actually raise little mysteries and questions for you, because that's in that sense that's what is great about Dune. It's the gift that keeps on giving. It just keeps bringing mystery and wonder to us, I think, So thank you very much to all of you for joining me, no matter where you are in the world. Look after yourselves and keep yourselves safe. And I will say good night to you all, and thank you. Good night now. Bye-bye. Bye.